A college professor once gave me the most unbelievable fact about reading. He said that reading is the only activity in existence where we feel guilty when we do it, and we feel guilty when we don't do it. We simultaneously oversimplify and overcomplicate reading. First, we as adult learners don't often remember what it was like to learn how to read. It's actually incredibly challenging for the mind to understand that these lines and symbols actually have meaning behind them. Second, although the science of reading is incredibly complex and incredibly interesting, it's only interesting to the people that find it interesting. It's like learning the mechanical engineering in a car. Some people are going to find that incredibly fascinating and complex and invigorating to learn all of the science behind the machinery. But others just kind of want the car to run. So as we explore the science of reading, it's really important for us to take a step back and look at the very fundamentals of what we are teaching and how we are teaching others how to read. So I'm going to give you 2 key lessons on the science of reading and how you can apply those to not just your instruction in reading, but also all forms of communication. First is reading needs to be comprehensible. There's a reason why middle school and high school students struggle to read some of the classic literature that they're assigned. Even though it is in English, the English that is being used is not in context with modern day society. In other words, there's no reference point, there's no context for understanding what it is that we are reading. And when our brain sees something that is too difficult, too complex, we kick out. Our attention leaves. We realize that we're just not going to understand it, so it's not worth our time. Dr. Stephen Krashen, a linguistics professor at the University of Southern California, presents this idea. He has been instrumental in developing the theory known as comprehensible input, formerly known as total proficiency through reading and storytelling. His theory, backed by many of his colleagues in the fields of linguistics, language acquisition, and second language acquisition, state that in order for students to really understand what it is that they're reading, the text needs to be mostly comprehensible, or they need to have the tools to be able to decipher the meaning behind the text. I'll give you an example using Spanish with a very simple sentence, hay un perro. There is a dog. Now, Krashen would argue that simply putting this sentence on the board isn't going to be supportive for any sort of learner. But when we add the translation, there is a dog, then students can readily see what the meaning behind the words are. From there, a teacher can flip it into a question. ¿Hay un perro? Is there a dog? And students can see on the board that there is indeed a dog. Now, just that simple win is motivation enough for the brain to keep its attention on the learning. And even though his theory originated in second language acquisition, it absolutely applies to first language acquisition as well. The second fact that is really important in understanding the fundamentals of the science of reading is understanding that reading gets to be novel. Krashen argues that the best way for an individual to gain language acquisition and for them to improve their reading skills is self-selected reading. This is a bit obvious, but it's something that we oftentimes ignore. He argues that we have an affective filter, AFF, affective filter, and we walk around the world learning like this. Now, this is our brain's defense mechanisms. It is looking for patterns. It is looking for safety. It is looking for security. And it's not always going to be open to learning. The fact of the matter is that we don't learn unless we are motivated by some external factor. It could be survival or it could be fun. Krashen argues that when the affective filter drops, our brains are more readily able to receive information, so much so that we actually learn without being active in the process, meaning that we are learning without even knowing that we are learning. Furthermore, we are more motivated to learn, to read, to engage in the content if we are having fun, even if the task is very challenging for us. In other words, challenges and obstacles aren't actually the obstacles. The primary obstacle to reading comprehension is ensuring that the learner's brain is highly motivated to learn, even if the material is challenging. So the challenge for us as educators, for those of us who are teaching and equipping students on how to read and how to more effectively read, is to first make sure that the content that we are presenting to them is comprehensible, that they understand what is going on, and that we're giving them enough of context that any blanks that they may have in their knowledge, they can fill in with the resources that we provide. And we also get to understand that the material gets to be novel. It gets to be unique. It gets to be captivating and fun for that particular learner. We often feel guilty when we do read because we presume that it is a passive act. So for us as educators, it's critical that we understand that reading is absolutely not a passive act. We might feel it as passive because we've been reading for almost decades for some of us, and we feel guilty when we don't read because we inherently know that reading is knowledge and knowledge is power. It's the old adage we all grew up with: the more you know. The more you know, the more doors are going to be opening up for you. The more you know, the quicker you are going to be able to achieve your personal and professional goals. And it is our role as educators to ensure that our students have every tool necessary so that they can read to get the knowledge to unlock their dreams. Yes, the science of reading is incredibly complex, and it is something that we really get excited about. However, it is absolutely critical that we understand that in order to support our students, we get to go back to the fundamentals of reading. And we have to understand that reading gets to be comprehensible and it gets to be novel. And we get to equip these students with the tools necessary so that they can unlock their fullest potential and never, ever feel guilty about picking up a book.